Incredibly excited to be talking about storytelling. For me, it's one of the most important skills that you can have in life, but also in business, right? I might be biased on that, but I believe that really storytelling gives you this unfair advantage versus anyone else. And why can I say that? I'd say with such conviction, almost like a little intensity. Well, because let me share an example on this one, right? Let's go into a story there. Let me share an example where I discovered the power of storytelling. That was, I think, a little less than 10 years ago. It was one of my first jobs back then as a consultant at Bain & Company in Germany. And you probably all know how it is in the first month. Everyone is just very anxious, right? I was very anxious to get started. 3 months in, my manager walks up to me and he looks at me and says, Philipp, we have this big proposal coming up. Can you put it together? I'm like, okay, yeah. It was for this pharma company. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I immediately went to work. I worked every night until 2 a.m, canceled my weekend plans. I thought I'm going to put together the most beautiful proposal that mankind has ever seen. Well, 2 weeks later, I put together, I think, 13 main slides, 65 slides for the appendix. And it looked beautiful. I thought, wow, that prospect is going to love this. Next day, we're at the prospect site. And we go into the office, I shake his hands, I connect my computer, and I'm ready to start the presentation. Clicker in my hand. But hold off. 5 minutes in, my manager and the prospect, they're still talking. I still with the clicker in my hand. 10 minutes in, they're still talking. I start to lower my clicker. 20 minutes in, I just put the clicker to the side. I'm thinking, what the F, right? Why did I prepare now this beautiful proposal if no one is looking at it, right? This is nuts. And as I was getting more and more upset, something hit me. I thought, Philipp, you know what? No one is going to look at the proposal either way. You might as well tune into the conversation. And so I tune in. And what I see there is, I see my manager just sharing examples of customers that he has helped. And I don't know why or how, but the prospect seems to like that. After the meeting, after 30 minutes, the prospect gets up, shakes my manager's hand and says, well, I really love listening to your stories. I can really see the value that you're creating. When can your team start? My manager had just closed that deal by telling stories. And when I looked at that, I had 2 reactions. I thought, one, what a jerk, right? He made me prepare this presentation, this pitch for 2 weeks, and no one was even looking at that. But second reaction was, wow, this is powerful, right? Storytelling is so cool. I got to learn that technique. And so that's when I decided I need to go deeper into this one. I need to know how to become a better storyteller. Now, fast forward to today, I've given this storytelling workshops to hundreds and hundreds of organizations, leading organizations around the world. And today I'll share really some of my favorite techniques that I use in these workshops. I'm going to share with you today. Now, these are just some of the organizations we've worked with. But hey, enough about me. I actually want to understand a little bit more from you. What type of storytellers do we have here in this room? Because I know it's a very diverse setup here, but let me get a sense. So quick show of hands. How do you rate your storytelling skills? And I'll give you some more instructions. A, I'm a great storyteller. B, I tell party and holiday stories once in a while. Or C, my 6-year-old nephew is a better storyteller than I. Now, I put you all now on big screen. So raise your hand if A, I'm a phenomenal storyteller. All right. Bara, Nicole, I love this. Jennifer, cool. Awesome. All right. We already got some volunteers for the exercises. Okay, next one. I tell party and holiday stories once in a while. All right, most of you. Okay, cool. And then last one. My 6-year-old nephew is a better storyteller than I. All right, anyone? All right, still a few. Okay, thanks for the honesty. I'll assure you, by the end of today, you will crush your 6-year-old nephew, niece, whatever it is, or child. You'll be an incredible storyteller. Now, what I have to acknowledge as well, that I think if you say that you're a bad storyteller, your level is much higher than here in Europe. Americans by default are much better storytellers than I. I just observed that now by giving lots of workshops. It's much more in your education, I think. Well, but let's go on. Let's move into some stuff. Oh, so what are the things that we're going to learn today? We are going to focus on the 3-step formula to connect with anyone without ever having to talk about the weather again in your life. I know we love this. We love talking about the weather, but not anymore. Now, what to expect? Well, first, style. Yes, I'll be speaking with that super sexy German accent. Cannot change that too much. Have tried it. Didn't work. Second, be prepared to step out of your comfort zone. It will be a little fun. For that, let's do a tiny exercise. Let's do quickly, put your arms all the way to the side. And now I want you to put them together, folding one thumb over the other. All right, someone tell me, how does it feel?
Powerful and focused. Powerful and focused.
Powerful and focused. Okay, interesting. I have never heard that before. How does it feel for other people?
I think it feels kind of refreshing.
Okay, refreshing. All right, good. Now do the same thing. Put your arms all the way outside, but this time put your wrong thumb on top. So the other thumb, the one that wasn't on top before. How does that feel this time?
Awkward.
Awkward. Yeah, super awkward. Now I want you to do the same thing. And this time put again the wrong thumb on top. How does it feel this time?
Not as awkward.
Less awkward. All right, thank you. This is how today's going to look like. It will feel a little bit awkward at first, but then you'll have fun with that and you'll start using it and it will be much more natural. So with that, let's do a quick calculation together to talk a little bit about what is at stake here. Let's do a quick calculation. I want you to get out a calculator. You can take your phone, you can go on Excel. If you're, I don't know, a dinosaur and you still have a real calculator, take a real calculator. And then I want you to put in the number of meetings that you have on an average day. Got it? Okay. Then I want you to multiply that by 3. I then want you to multiply that by 9,000. Divide that by 1,440. And whatever number you're getting, put it in the chat right now. Okay? Put it in the chat and let's see what numbers we're all getting here. Oh, wow. 225. That's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that number so high. 75. All right. 75 seems to be a good one here. 186, Mary. I'm not jealous of your daily schedule. Damn. Chrissy, oh, Lauren, I like this. All right. Okay. 112. Okay. I think we have it all over. Now, anyone knows what number are we talking about here? What is that number that we just calculated? Any guesses? All right. No guesses.
How many words we speak in the meeting?
Sorry?
The number of words we say in the meeting?
Close. It goes in the right direction. Okay, let me walk you through my example so that you know what number you just calculated, okay? All right, I have on average 10 meetings per day. 3, that's the time we spend on average per meeting on small talk. So 3 minutes. Multiply that by 9,000. Multiply that by 9,000. That's the days in a lifetime you spend at work. That gives us the total minutes that in a lifetime we spend on small talk at work. Now that doesn't say that much. So divide this by 1,440, which is the minutes per day. And you'll get the days in a lifetime you spend on small talk. In my case, it's 188 days that I spend on my life on small talk at work, which is crazy, right? And for you, your number, that's the same. Now, either you're on the lower end, maybe you're a little bit more on the upper end, but at the end, it's crazy how much time we spend on small talk at work. And now, nothing wrong with that. I like small talk, but the thing is, how do we usually, what do we talk about? I actually want to hear from some of you. How does your small talk look like? Who wants to share how they do small talk? Thank you.
How are your kids? What did you do this weekend? The crazy weather.
The crazy weather. All right, cool. I like that. All right, thanks. These are excellent ideas. Barbara, what about you?
Most of it is just like little things done over the weekend. Like, hey, what did you do? And it also depends. I generally hate small talk because it depends on who I'm having it with. If it's my boss, I don't really give a damn. But if it's like a coworker that I really like, the small talk will extend to big talk because we'll always have an inside joke.
Got it. Yeah, it depends a lot on who you have in front of you. Now, let me chip in with what most small talk looks like, right? Most small talk is usually like, hey, how are you? Good. Yeah, it's raining again here in Amsterdam. It has been raining, I think, this entire week, but hopefully the sun will be out anytime soon. Now, maybe your small talk is a little bit different, but hey, if we're really honest, let's say 99% of our small talk is usually about the weather. It's usually about maybe traffic, maybe something, maybe weekend plans, but it's just very standard, right? It's very standard. And again, nothing wrong with standard, but just think with standard, you're missing out an incredible opportunity to just put your relationship on the next level. Let me share with you an example of how you could respond differently, and then I'll show you, and then I'll give you some specific nuggets, right? If someone were to ask me today, actually, can someone please ask me how are you so that it doesn't feel so awkward? Nicole,
How are you?
All
How
right.
are you?
Yes. Well, now actually really good, but this morning I had this very interesting experience. I hopped on a sales call with someone that I know from undergrad. Haven't seen him in 10 years. And now somehow I got so nervous. My heart started beating. I don't know why, but I think I just remembered my 18 years old me, this very insecure guy. Anyway, when was the last time that you got really nervous in front of an audience? And how was that for you? No need to respond, Nicole, no pressure. But see, you take something specific about your day, something that happened, that actually happened today, right? So something specific that happened in your day, and you try to use that to establish rapport at the beginning. Now, let me walk you through the steps. And then we do some exercises together so that you can check it out. How does it actually work? So, share a short connection story when someone asks you, how are you? What does the formula consist of, that connection story? Transition in, share your story, and transition out. Now, transition in, that's giving the short hook to transition into your story. So just 1 or 2 sentences that get your listeners excited about your story. So that can be something like, you know what, I'm really good. I had this kind of odd experience this morning, or this really interesting article that I just read, maybe the most perfect morning. You see, all of these words are really interesting, most perfect. They already sell the story that is about to come a little bit, so that you get the other person excited about what is to come. Now, transition in is a very brief part. It's 1 or 2 sentences. That's it. Don't talk longer. And once you share your story, you want to share a short, let's say 30-second story, very relatable story, something that the other person can relate to, right? Something that shows a little bit more about you as a human, not just the weather, right? Now, what are some prompts that I like? Well, prompts that I like is usually maybe something interesting that has happened lately, maybe some new skill that you've picked up, maybe this small thing that annoys you. I know Americans are usually great at sharing these pet peeves. I need to do that more often, but you guys are usually very good at that. So anything that is a little bit more personal, right? A little bit more about yourself. So share your story, very brief. Once you've shared your story, and then we go to the last step, it's you want to transition out. And transition out is you want to ask a question that will ask a story in return. Now, what's a story? What's a question that asks a story in return? Any question that asks the other person for something where they can respond with a story. So something like, say, when they that ask for a specific event in time or a specific experience in time. Usually the questions with the when and the what, they trigger a story in response. Now let's look at a few questions, and you tell me if it's a good question or a bad question. Good question means it actually asks for a story in return. Bad question is if it doesn't ask for a story in return. Now, I'd suggest just raise your hand if you want to respond to that. So question 1, is that a good question or a bad question? Eric, yes, tell me.
I said good question.
It's a what?
Good question.
A good question. And why?
Because it prompts folks to talk about their day, which I know conversations I have, folks are really ready to talk about their days, especially if they're not having a good day or they're having a wonderful day.
Okay. Is there anyone, does everyone think the same way, or someone has a different opinion on this one? All right, Barbara. Yes.
It's a fairly good question, but it could be rephrased. Like you could say something like, what is new? Or, I don't know, what are your plans for? Or, you know, I don't know, something that like, instead of them having to think about, let's say they are having a bad day, about that bad thing over again, be like, are you okay?
Okay. I'll play, or let me actually, Matthew, do you want to respond to that last one before I share something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a parent of an 8-year-old, the answer I always get is fine, and then it kind of ends the conversation. So I typically will, if I lead with something like that, it's followed with, well, what was the best thing that happened today, or something that elicits a bit more than like a one-word response.
I love this. This is great advice. Actually, I will keep that in mind for the future workshops. You should tailor your questions so that an 8-year-old could respond, right? Because they are the hardest. But there, I agree that I feel it's not a phenomenal question because it's very broad as well, right? Most people will respond, yeah, my day is good. Yeah, thanks for asking. All right, let's look at another one. What about this one here? When was the last time you started a new hobby, and how was that for you? Just raise your hand if you want to share if that's a good or a bad question. I know, Lotus, you had your hand up before, so I think I'll just ask you now. Lotus, you want to respond?
I think it's a good question because I think it gives people something to focus on, to choose a story to choose to tell about that hobby and how it was for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it asks for a specific moment in time. It definitely gets a story and response. I agree. All right. Next one. Have you ever had a mental breakdown over a burnt toast? Is that a good or a bad question? Brandon, you had your hand up before.
It kind of goes back to you can answer it kind of yes, no. So I would lean more towards it not being so great of a question.
Okay. Yeah. Ariel, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'd say that this question, depending on how well you know the person, could be a poor question or it could be a good question. If one has an established relationship with a person, that might be a good one. Otherwise, it's kind of like, this is a very heavy topic, and may not be appropriate to bring up. And like, I think a lot of people might actually shut down if you bring up a question like this and not know them super well or not have established trust.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, on this one, I agree as well. It's not a great question. And I know you should always make it dependent on your audience, but almost try to think, I want to craft a question that 99% of the people will have a story in return. That should be your goal. It shouldn't be like, it depends, but it should always be like, hey, I craft a story that everyone will have a story. Okay. Last question before we then go into some exercise. What was your most fun trip this year? Good or bad question? All right, Deborah, yes.
Here I am. It can be a good question. And I think it would depend on context as well,
Okay.
like at what point in the dialogue. So I wouldn't lead with that question, but if I was building rapport with somebody, that would be a great next question direction that I would use.
Yeah, for sure. I think there, obviously, you want to share first your fun trip that you had, right? You want to share, hey, I just had this cool golf trip with my buddies this weekend and what, and then you go into asking that. Okay, awesome. Hey, I think you all know that stuff. So let's do some exercise here. It's a good question. So let's do a quick reflection. Now, think about a connection story. If someone were to ask you today, how are you? How could you respond with a short connection story? Now, that can be anything that is more personal than weather or traffic or weekend plans. Let's say some interesting skill that you've picked up lately, maybe some fun trip that you had, whatever it is. So components, transition in, share your story, and transition out. Okay, cool. Let's do a quick demo. Who would like to share their connection story? Let's hear from someone who maybe hasn't spoken yet. Who would like to share their connection story? Yay, Haley. All right. Haley, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. I am actually audio only because I was dropping my kid off at school. It was supposed to be a late drop-off day, but we were still late and I was frustrated. I wanted to be in person for this meeting. So those are the little things that were grinding and frustrating for me. Is there something in your life that seems little but still frustrates you?
I like that. All right, good job. Okay, love it. Perfect example. Great job there, Haley. Really good example.
Thanks.
I think I'd have one question to all of you right now. Right now, Haley, what did you ask me at the end? Would you mind repeating it for the full group?
Do you have something in your life that is little but still frustrating?
Okay. I think we can reframe that a tiny bit. Question to all of you. How could you reframe that question to get it more of a story, to certainly get a story in response?
I guess I could give it a shot. Could you say, tell me about a time where something was little and it was very frustrating for you?
Yeah. I like that for the tell me about a time, but I think tell me about a time often has that almost interview connotation, right? It's like, tell me about a time when you showed leadership experience. So I'd say just skip the tell me about a time and say, hey, when was the last time, right? Hey, when was the last time that you got very, very upset about some small thing or so, right? When was the last time, I think sounds a little bit smoother, but just obviously the personal preference. Now, who has just heard an incredible connection story? Whose story did you hear?
It was Julie's. She goes
Julie!
skydiving.
All right, Julie. I think Julie wants to share it now with the group.
Sharing the story, Philip, of how I became a skydiver. I have a dear friend who, together we established this habit of at the very beginning of any new year, we would set an adventure for ourselves. And one year, we decided that we would ride our bikes from San Francisco to San Diego. And it was an epic adventure where we camped all the way and had such an amazing time. So the next year, what did we do to top that? So we were chatting with the president of our company at the time, and he had just done a tandem skydive. And we thought, well, that's pretty impressive and not as time intensive. So yeah, let's go do that. And I did one tandem skydive and was hooked and learned to skydive on my own and have been doing it for 25 years now.
That's incredible. Well, and I'm curious, Julie, what question did you ask in return, Matthew?
Well, Matthew actually asked the most excellent question. He got us talking about trips that we were taking. And I live in New York City and don't get out very much because I'm really in an intense period of time. But I did take a drive to our drop zone for a safety day. So his prompt is what got the story started. And we were asking such fun questions that it really just felt like a natural conversation, not, we didn't talk about the weather at all, actually.
Awesome. That's incredible. Now, if you, let's assume that you started your conversation straight away and you say, hey, I just came back from the skydive and it was so much fun, so energizing, blah, blah, blah. What question could you then ask let's say Matthew in return?
I would ask something similar to what I asked to the team, which is, this is what I do to stay sane and have some joy in my life. What brings you joy in your life?
I like this. I like this. Yeah, this is really cool because it asks for something personal, something that people also feel very passionate about. Awesome. Okay, cool. Barbara, you still have your hand raised? No.
Yeah, talking about connection. I believe I spoke with Eric, and our connection was radio. And that came off of the question, how are you? Because we started talking about what we connect our how are yous to. And his was connecting it to family. Mine was connecting it to work because I work so much. And I worked 16 years in radio. And so storytelling is my life. And he said he was starting a radio station. So that was our connection.
And what question did you ask in to solicit his story in response?
Well, I when I asked him how are you, and he was like, it really is just connected to my family, because they bring me, how did you say it, Eric? Like they kind of just bring me like joy. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense because your family brings you joy, so you would relate that to the how are you. And I was like, funny enough, you focus on family, but I focus on work. So my answers to how are you are always, it's a busy season, it's hectic, it's this. So that tied in our connection, if that makes any sense. I don't know if Eric wants to elaborate.
That's perfectly, that's how it happened. And she just happened to mention when she tied it into work, she said, my previous job when I used to be in radio. And when she said that, I, just connected with me because I was telling her, my business partner, and I just started an internet radio station. So that's how we got on the subject. And she told me she used to work in radio, but it just kind of flowed naturally.
Okay, that's perfect. And hey, we don't want to over-engineer it. If it flows naturally, hey, just go with, just ride it, right? Perfect. I'd say still, the easy part, honestly, is the sharing the story because it's pretty straightforward. But the tough part is really the questions that you ask. So not right now, but going forward, when you think about these connection stories, really be mindful. What question could I ask that would really get a story in response? Because that's really the challenging part. Okay, but that's it on connection stories. Is there any question before we move to the next topic of today? Anything on connection stories that is burning on your mind right now? Let's have max one question.
I guess I wonder how much when we talk about relating or talking with folks, how much you I don't know how to ask this, but how much is there potential to have a fruitful exchange if you have a lot in common with the person? I mean, there are oftentimes you might encounter someone that you don't have a lot in common with and the conversation doesn't go anywhere. But some folks you might have a connection with and organically the conversation just goes in a certain direction. Just like we were just happened to talk about radio. When I started my conversation with Barbara, I wasn't even thinking about radio until she mentioned it.
Jasmine, Amy calling from Tesla.
So I guess I'm wondering how much of this is influenced by the things that you might share in common with the person that you're interacting with.
That's a great question. On that one, I think the key is to focus on relatable emotions. So instead of thinking like, she doesn't like skydiving, but I like skydiving, we have nothing in common. Rather think on what are the universal emotions that every human experiences. And let's say universal emotions are, we probably all feel stressed at work. We probably all have some sort of struggles with our family. We all have tried out something where we probably were not good at that, right? So what are the universal things that are human-wide, right? And by focusing on that, you can have a meaningful conversation with anyone, okay? Alrighty, let me talk to you about one more thing, just because I think it's very, very cool. Let me share. Now, connection stories, you can train yourself to spot these every day, these moments, because right now it still feels a little bit awkward, right? You're like, oh man, what happened here? Interesting. I don't know. Doesn't come that naturally. let me share with you an exercise that you can do every day to have a pool of stories that you can start using every single day. It's one of my favorite exercises that I have been doing now for my entire storytelling journey. It's the one exercise that I've been doing consistently. That exercise is called Homework for Life. The first time I read about it was from Storyworthy, the book from Matthew Dix. It's a really cool book on personal storytelling. So how does it work? Every single day, you sit down. I do that in the morning. I do that at the morning, 6 a.m. I ask myself, if I had to tell a story from the previous day, can be from work or outside of work, what would it be, right? What was there yesterday or today? Was there one moment maybe that stood out? One moment that touched my heart? Maybe something that was a little bit different than the other days? Some small moment. And just think about, is there some moment that stood out a little bit more than the others? Now, what happens when you do that? If you first put down the date, you then put down the moment, and then you put down the lesson if you want to. Doesn't have to have a lesson. Not every moment has a lesson. This is actually a snapshot of my homework for life from March this year. Please don't go into the detail. But you haven't checked it. Is there any PC stuff? No, hopefully not. Anyway, you do that for every single day. And at the beginning, it will feel awkward. At the beginning, it's like, okay, so today I went to work and I had cereals. Really cool day. But once you do that for some time, you train your mind. What happens when you do that for a few weeks? First of all, you'll have hundreds of story ideas. Every single day, there will be incredible stories that you can use. First thing. Second, you'll be more mindful in life. You'll walk through life and you'll be like, oh, story-worthy moment. Oh, story-worthy moment. You'll spot them more easily. And at the end, you'll just be more present, right? You'll be more into the moment. There's not a bad moment because everything is a learning. Now, that's homework for life. It's a powerful exercise that I've been doing for now quite some time. And I'd suggest do the same. It's really, really cool. Let me see the time. Do we have time? Do we have time? Do you want to do one more breakout exercise? No? Okay, then people don't look that enthusiastic. Then I'd suggest let's then go into wrapping up today and then do a few more questions so that we don't rush out. But I'd suggest on Homework for Life, it's really a powerful exercise that you can start doing. So there, just sit down in the morning and reflect upon it. Hey, what's the one thing that stood out? And do that for some time, and it's really, really magical. Deborah, do you have a question, or did you want to go to the breakout exercise?
Do you have a question? And I'd love to go to breakout rooms. I'm just curious, like speaking as a person who's been keeping a journal since I was 9 years old, how many other people have had the practice of journaling? Because the Homework for Life looks like a wonderful way to structure or go back, but it's like, so who among us is also like a lifelong journaler? It's like, because this seems to sort of be an extension of something like that.
I'm personally not, but I think there are probably quite a few people in here. Yay, a few lifelong journalists. So it's probably Homework for Life and journaling can be compared that Homework for Life is the one-line summary of your journal for a day, right? It's your one-line summary. Okay, before we wrap up today, is there any question that is still burning on your mind that you would like to discuss, or that where you're still not clear about?
Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah. I was when I enrolled this here, I thought that we will talk a little bit about storytelling in presentations and so on. And I really had good experience with PowerPoint presentations, let's say, when they started with the story to tell. Do you have experience on this? How this could be made, or what are typical examples of what should I take care for this? And then
what is your role roughly? Sales, leadership, marketing?
Engineering.
Engineering. Okay.
Software engineering.
Okay, software engineering. Okay, there I see two options. Option one is you should just share something personal, right? Something interesting that happened to you, similar to the connection stories that we had today. People like to see that, especially in technical backgrounds, because everything that's technical. And the moment you can show some human side of just something interesting, something personal, people appreciate. That's option one. Option two is to think more about the customer, because software engineers, you're always solving problems for a specific customer. And so a very typical story that you could tell is how you're helping a customer overcome a certain problem. So you pick a specific customer that your product is solving, and you think, hey, what is that pain point that that customer is having? And then in your story, you share how you have helped the customer overcome that pain point. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. But on this one, I mean, all of you will receive the physical copy of my book, and there will be tons of examples that will walk you through how can I structure a story for these specific situations. Okay.
And we had a question from Shagan were the story examples and homework for life based on your last day or anticipating it for the day ahead?
It's usually for the last day. It could actually be kind of cool to anticipate it. I never thought of this, but I'd say it's mostly looking back. So either if you're a night owl, reflect upon your current day, or do that in the next day, reflect upon the previous day.
And what does the transition out look like?
Yeah, so transition out in the connection story is really about sharing that question. So you say, hey, enough about me. When was the last time that you XYZ? And so you want to bring it out to the other person. Very important. I know in storytelling, we often think, hey, I want to share my story. I want to share this 5-minute monologue. But storytelling is actually to make the other person comfortable, to trust you, to open up to you. And so it's much more think about how can I ask the right question? That's really what transition out is. What are your thoughts on sharing stories through different channels on social media? Consider we can find audiences and formats out there. Okay, on social media, the principles of storytelling, so how do you add emotions, how do you add surprise, how do you add visual moments, they're fairly comparable. But on social media, you need to be much more to the point. If you want to, Elian, I can actually send you a PDF. I created one where it walks you through exactly the steps on how social media storytelling is different to, let's say, oral storytelling. I'll share that with you. You can check it out. Okay. But overall, I'd say on social media, the only difference is you want to be much more to the point. You don't have 2-3 minutes, but you go straight into it. So context very quickly, you immediately go into the problem. That's the big difference there. Okay. Awesome. Hey, we've come almost to an end. What I would like you all to do, I just want you to put into the chat, what's one thing that you learned today, okay? Just put it in the chat, one thing that you learned today, and then I'll wrap it up, okay? Okay, let's see. The importance of asking good questions, transition out deliberately. Yes, please do that deliberately. Being mindful, collecting stories. Yes, key point. Focus on universal emotions to connect. Yeah. We are humans. We have the same emotions. Connect to emotions, not the activity. Beautiful. Focusing on emotions. Yeah, emotions honestly is the most important part in storytelling. Feelings, documenting stories, to engage with someone on a more personal level. If anything, someone asks you, how are you? 99% would be able to share a story. Yes. Open-ended questions. Yes. Relatable. Structuring a story. For sure. Practice, connecting, transition out, transition in and out, and focus on the transition out. Connecting. Fantastic. Hey, these are all incredible learnings. Thank you so much for sharing them. Now, if I can just give you one final encouragement there on what we learned today. Let's say on connection stories, don't overthink it, right? Just give them a try. You will have tons of opportunities, right? Someone asks you, how are you? Just go for it. See, experience it for yourself. What's the worst thing that could happen? Someone says, okay, cool, and you move on. Best thing, you'll have a beautiful conversation and will just flow very naturally. Now, what are the things that you could do after today? After today, pretty much 3 options. Option number 1, and that is probably the hopefully the least preferred, do nothing. Cannot blame you for that. I've joined tons of webinars, tons of workshops out there, and I haven't changed anything. That would obviously be a pity. If you can at least try to change the how are you, then share a connection story. That would be cool. Second, do some self-study. You all will receive the hard copy of my book, so check it out. It's a very practical, very easy digestible resource, and will just help you tell incredible stories. It is a little bit framed for salespeople, but don't worry, 90% of it is universal in storytelling. So check it out. Now, if you feel that, hey, Philipp, this is a cool path, and I actually need some more help, more guidance, more coaching, well, check it out as well. Let me know. Join one of our storytelling programs. Once in a while, not that often, maybe once every half year, we do storytelling programs in which we work with a very small group of people, in which we really focus on how can we transform the storytelling skills in just a few sessions. It's a lot of fun, very interactive, similar style, but just with a much smaller group there, right? But that's everything that I very much wanted to cover in this 1-hour session.